Bushcraft 412, and today I want to show you a neat little piece of gear that I put together quite a long time ago, and I really can't believe I haven't done a small review on this yet. You know, it's one of these things, I have about 4 or 5 of these, and I keep them in the bottoms of most of my backpack. I actually usually don't take them out, which is probably why I've forgotten about them all these times, but this is my emergency fishing kit that I keep in my hunting packs and my backpacks when I'm backpacking or out, you know, doing some bushcraft or some primitive camping or whatever. I keep a bunch of these around, and they're really neat, and I wanted to show them off. First of all, I use the Altoids smalls. You can use the big size Altoids. That's perfectly fine. I like the smalls because it's a space saver, and they don't collapse as easy if you set on them or put weight on them or whatever. So let's kind of show you what's inside this thing. And I have used these on backpacking trips, so these are actually pretty well tested. First of all, I have a piece of cardboard, and what I have wrapped around this thing is probably, I don't know exactly because I do have a bunch of these, but usually what I do is I wrap it with maybe some 4 or 5 pound test fishing line, something usually like a monofilament, normal, like usually I use kind of like a green color because it seems like that's what most kind of backcountry places where you're fishing usually have dark, murky water, so I tend to use a little more green. And then on top of that, I believe I have, usually I do like a 15 or a 20 pound line over that, and I probably got about 20 to 30 pounds of each. And then on top, this black line is actually ice fishing line. I believe it's rated for 50 pounds, and I've got about maybe 25, 30 foot of that. And it's neat because it's a nylon, I'm not sure if it's a braid, but it has like a nylon coating over it to make it extra tough so it doesn't break on the ice. I like it because not only can I use it for my emergency fishing kit, because it is a much tougher line, but then number 2, I can also use it for snares and have successfully used it for snares. So I do like having 20, 30 feet of that. So altogether here I have maybe 50 to 60 foot of fishing line just wrapped around a really thin piece of cardboard, which in an emergency situation is also tinder. Always got to think like that. Number 2, I have, see if I can get this out, it's in there, jammed in there pretty good. This is just a small plastic little container, and in it are a handful of small fish hooks and a couple split shot. This I think came with like a kid's fishing pole, maybe something along those lines. Nothing really fancy here, but I like this little plastic container, so I kind of kept it and I keep it in this kit. And I think I taped it with just some scotch tape or whatever, but there's like 3 or 4 fishing hooks in there and some split shot, just enough for an emergency situation. Very neat. And then in here I have, and I stole this, sorry, I can't remember who to give credit to on this, but I have a couple eyelets, a couple different sizes as well. That way if I need to make kind of a field expedient fishing pole, I can just take these and screw those into a long green piece of wood and actually make kind of like a little mini fly fishing rod out of this. Very kind of a neat little thing. And another thing I got to point out with this, why we're not focusing here, but there is, as you can see, dead space in here. You can add, despite everything I have in here, you can add more fishing hooks and more small little items in there. There's actually room for more in here, which is kind of nice. I didn't completely fill this thing up. I could add a couple more split shot. I could add, I could take a small piece of a cork, cut a piece of a cork and put it in there as a bobber. I could also add, for example, maybe a, oh, I'm blanking out here. Oh, a swivel. So that way maybe if you are using a, like kind of an improvised fishing thing, you can, or fishing rod, I'm getting a little tongue-tied here. If you do have an improvised fishing rod, you can have a swivel to attach it to it. That way the line isn't coming in direct contact with the wood or anything like that. And plus the swivel is nice if you're ever going to be attaching anything to make sure the line doesn't get twisted. You can also add, you would probably wind up a small metal leader in there. There's a lot of little tiny things you can add, but I wanted to keep this one really, really basic and just those few items. So I have enough to basically do some hand fishing, or I can wrap this around, a stick, or make my own kind of expedient fishing pole out of the eyelets. I really wish I could remember who had that eyelet idea. But you can actually, if you take out this little plastic piece and you get rid of the little plastic container and just put the hooks and the sinkers in there, that will give you more room as well. So, like I said, this is not the most efficient when it comes to saving space, but this is something I like, and I do keep this kind of thing in my pack. And you can always upgrade this to the large Altoid can if you do want a little more room, but I like this just because it's a small little item. It weighs maybe half an ounce at best, and I've used it quite a few times where I've been just kind of going along and I find a pond and maybe see some fish jumping and say, hey, I want to try a little fishing, and I can take a break and have a fishing pole set up in 5-10 minutes and do a little fishing. So neat little item. And these Altoid smalls, I buy them all the time just because I like the little canisters, because I use them for a bunch of things. I actually use them to keep tinder in as well. I'll put a little dryer lint and maybe a cotton ball in there, and that way I always have some tinder in my pack. So if you went through my backpacks, you're actually going to find probably 2 or 3 of these in the bottom of a bunch of my backpacks. So I always like to keep them. You can tape them up so they're waterproof and forget about them. Really neat little item, and a neat way to make a small emergency fishing kit for literally no cost and small enough where you can slip it into a pocket and forget about it. Bushcraft 412, I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any other neat ideas as for small items you can stash in one of these, feel free to leave a comment or a video response. Thanks for watching.